As you all know, it's Black History Month. I'm not shy about the fact that I tell people that I'm Black. Nor am I shy about sharing Black history, which I think is just as much American history as anything else. And so I am excited today to have merge a Workshop Wednesday with Black History Month by having two great legends here. And I know they hate when I say that, but they truly are extraordinary men, legends in the field of criminal law and in law in general. And I'm honored to stand here and invite both of them here to speak to you all today. Completely honored. Y'all have no idea. I still remember the first time I met both of you. You were in a stairwell with Leon Haley talking. My very first day.
I wonder about what. Yeah.
You were probably
Calming him down.
But my very first day at the DA's office, I was running up the stairs to get to my court on time. And I ran into Mike and Leon Haley, who you may know. And I think they were shocked to see me. Didn't know who I was, but we certainly met later, and we've become great friends. And then Judge Sterns, who it seems like everyone already knew who he was except for me. I met him for the first time in the 213th before he was the judge of the 213. You may not remember, but you came into the courtroom, and I remember this very tall gentleman, striking, commanding presence, and I had to know who he was. And so people began to say, "You don't know who Judge Sterns is?" And I said, "No." But now I know he is a quintessential gentleman. Both of these individuals are. And just one of the best and fairest judges that I've ever had the honor of practicing in front of. So I'm just going to share a little bit about both of them, and then I'm going to let them talk to you about really whatever they want to talk to you about. Mike Heiskell, first of all, he has a lot of, I'm going to stand out of the way of the screen, but Mike Heiskell has a lot of firsts in his history. He graduated from Baylor Law School, 1974?
74, 50 years ago.
50 years ago, wow. And he was the first African-American to graduate from Baylor's Law School. So you're sitting in the room with history.
Yeah.
He was a former Galveston County Assistant DA, and then he went on to be an Assistant U.S. Attorney in the Northern District of Texas. He was considered Tarrant County Black Bar's Lawyer of the Year in 1995 and 2000. He's a frequent author and lecturer all over the state, in state court and in federal court. He has spoken at so many places that I can't even tell you about them all. But he is known as a consummate professional, a legal scholar, and one of the best trial lawyers that I've ever had an opportunity to try a case against. He is currently the president of the National Criminal Defense Lawyers Association.
National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers.
I got it wrong. National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers. And for those of you who don't know, that is a big deal. And so again, when I say you're sitting in a room with greatness and history, you're sitting in a room with greatness and history. So Mike Heiskell, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I appreciate you.
Thank you.
I put this quote up here because I found it and I thought it was so cool. So you can read it, but Mike has been quoted as saying, "My passion for criminal defense work emanates from my firm belief that ours is an honorable profession rooted in our Constitution and born of the belief that all humans are born free and equal in dignity and right that must be protected. We exist to serve them, and we must always put our clients at the center of our discussions and actions." That sums up my Heiskell. Hear, hear. We also have the Honorable retired District Judge Louis Sturns. Judge Sterns is a native of Fairview, Texas, and I know he has a lot of brothers. I don't remember how many, 4 or 5, 4 brothers. He graduated from the University of Kansas School of Law after he served in the military and worked in the military as a judge advocate general. He was honorably discharged, and afterwards he entered private practice here in Fort Worth. And he, along with legal and civil rights legend L. Clifford Davis, who I wish could have been here also, they began a practice and working together. He has among him some firsts also. He was elected to Criminal District Court number 1 and is the first African-American judge to be appointed and elected to a criminal district bench here in Tarrant County. He is also the first African-American judge to serve on the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. And so for those of you who may not know, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals is the highest court for criminal cases in the state of Texas. Judge Sterns has received numerous awards. He was also appointed and then elected to be the judge of the 213th District Court, where he retired in 2018. 2018. I had the honor of trying cases in front of him, and when I tell you he is the fairest judge that I've ever tried a case in front of, because he was always concerned about making sure that he gave a fair trial, not only to the state, but to the defense. And I always respected that about him. He served in various capacities, probably too many to count, but I know that his biggest accomplishment is his marriage to his wife, Marilyn. There are 4 children and 3 grandchildren and 1 great-granddaughter now.
Right.
You remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things also that you may not know about Judge Sterns that I would be remiss if I didn't share is the discovery rules that we now follow with respect under the Michael Morton Act. A lot of it has to do with the work that Judge Sterns did. He was asked to serve over an inquest regarding the prosecutor whose name I can't even remember now. I just remember Michael Morton, Ken Anderson, who secreted evidence as a prosecutor, which resulted in Michael Morton going to prison for 25 years for a crime he didn't commit. And so over that inquest, he served, made rulings, and out of all of that came the Michael Morton Act that we follow today. Hey, Candy. Hi. Candy's here.
And he was the first judge in our state that we know of that's ever sentenced a DA to jail.
Oh,
He sentenced Ken Anderson to 5 days in jail. Williamson County DA as a result of his transgressions during the Michael Morton case.
Yes.
So Judge Sterns did that. Yes.
He did that too. Judge Sterns is quoted as saying, with respect to the criminal justice system, we have to work on that. We all have our biases, but we must be sure that we don't let personal biases creep into the judicial process. We have laws for a reason, to create and maintain order in our society. It is important for everyone to have confidence in the legal system. When people believe they have been treated unfairly, the whole system suffers. So without further ado, I'm gonna sit down because I know y'all don't want to hear from me. And I'm gonna turn it over to 2 Tarrant County legal legends, retired Judge William Sturns and Mike Heiskell.
Okay. Thank you. Of course, I want to defer to Judge Sterns, and let me echo what Tiffany just stated, and she's exactly correct. For the best judge in Tarrant County, one of the best judges ever, actually, is Judge Sterns. His judicial temperament, his acumen is beyond reproach. He has ranked highly each and every judicial poll when he was on the bench, higher than any other judge that I can recall. So, Judge, I want to tip my hat to you for your skill and expertise in sitting on the bench, as well as when you were in private practice. I mean, he was a known litigator there too, but I want to defer to him and let him begin this conversation.
Well, thank you, Mike. And first of all, I want to say thank you all for inviting Mike Heiskell and I to come speak to you. It is an honor for me to be with so many good lawyers that I've known for a long time. I mean, Mike Heiskell, living legend in his own. Now, I think he is the first president of the National Criminal Defense Lawyers Association, come from Tarrant County. So I'm proud of you, Mike.
Thank you.
Christy Jack. Christy was my chief prosecutor in 213th District Court. and she helped me a lot. I had been away from criminal law for a while. I had been practicing civil law. And when I came back and got into the criminal court again, I kind of needed somebody to help me. And she was right there, and she was providing invaluable assistance and help to me. And of course, this young lady, you remember I told you this. Tiffany tried, I think, 2 murder cases in my court. Got conviction each one. And after the second one, I told her, I said, you're cold-blooded. And metaphorically, I said to her, you're the kind of prosecutor that could cut somebody's head off, and they wouldn't even know it's off until it's rolling down the street. You are just, because she was so calm,
Yes.
so careful. I was just blown away by your skill as a prosecutor. So I'm saying all this to say that I'm honored to be here among people who I have so much respect for as professionals. And so I'm not sure what I can say to you that will be educational to you, but I will be happy to recount to you some of the experiences that I've had since I came to Tarrant County in 1976. I came here after serving 3 years in the Army Judge Advocate General Court, where I prosecuted and defended criminal cases, court-martial. Went into practice with Judge Davis in the heart of the hood on Rosedale. And we represented primarily poor people and who didn't have a lot of money to pay us. And we handled everything from civil rights litigation, criminal law, family law, consumer cases, probate, which I never learned anything about. We basically took everything that came through the door. But it was a great experience for me because Clifford Davis had some ideas about the practice of law that I found to be very worthwhile emulating. One, he told me that whenever you walk into the courtroom, make sure that the other side knows that there's a lawyer representing that person on the other side of the table. 2, he told me, make sure that you treat everybody in the courtroom fairly. And that included not just the lawyers and the judge, but also the clerks and those people, because all of them can be of great assistance to you. And so it was a great experience for me to practice law with him and to work with him from the period of 1976, I think about 2 years before I broke away and started my own practice. But it was a great experience. But I can tell you that I've seen a lot of things in these 50 plus years. I was telling Mike Heiskell that from 1976 to 1986, I never had a single minority on any of my juries. Okay? Prosecutors back then were told to use their peremptory strikes to challenge all of the minorities. And so during that 10-year period of time prior to Basson versus Kentucky being decided, it was unheard of, at least in my practice. And I tried a lot of criminal cases again. I never once had a Black person sit on a criminal court jury during that period of time. And so one of the things I would say to folks now is that it's very important that we have these diverse juries. And as lawyers, please be aware of that. If you see the prosecutor using his or her peremptory challenges in such a manner that's to exclude people based on their race or their gender or their religion, don't be afraid to file your motion and make a hearing on it. Judges won't like it. I can tell you, judges are trying to move things fast, but that's okay. The good judge is going to respect you for doing your job. So always, I think, remember that's something you can do because we don't want to ever go back to that period of time in our history.
And let me say something to that real quick.
Yes, go ahead.
That strikes came from the lectures by the Dallas County DA, a guy named John Sparling.
Yeah.
And when I was a prosecutor in Galveston, I came up to Dallas, and myself and Larry Baraka, who's deceased now, he was a former state district judge, former criminal defense attorney, but one of the first Black DAs in Dallas. We sat in on one of those sessions. And thereafter, we talked about it, and he said he was going to go talk to Henry Wade, who was the DA back then, about changing all of that, which never happened until later on in the 80s. But that emanated from those lectures, those written documents that proposed that. And there was a case, Thomas J. Miller Ale, that went up to the Supreme Court that noted that and reversed that conviction. That got rid of all of at least the production and seminars that even professed to do that. So that was something that, experienced firsthand, but it came from Dallas. And I'll talk about that later about Dallas. So go ahead, Judge.
Yeah. No, that's the point I wanted to make, Mike, is that
Okay. Well,
let me kick it over to you.
Yeah, when I came here, in fact, it was 40 years ago, 1984. I had been in the AUSA for 4 years in Dallas, from 80 to 84. And actually, I came with Bill Johnson, who was a civil chief, and Anthony Vaughn, who was a civil AUSA, a civil assistant U.S. attorney. And we came to Fort Worth. I was thinking about opening an office in Dallas until I met Tim Evans. And Tim Evans actually convinced me to come to Fort Worth. And I had been in Dallas, and I would come to Fort Worth to federal court, and I found it so much different here than Dallas, as far as the atmosphere, the collegiality, the judges, how you were treated by co-counsel and everything else. But walking into the courthouse, it was different because weren't many of us, and we, back then, I could just tell you, with my last name, Heiskell, it's a German name, and so people didn't know who I was until they actually met me in person. I would routinely have people come to my office thinking that I was a white guy. And when they found I was a Black guy, they turn around and leave. That's true. And we had a number of those things that happened. But one of the things that I recall from this racial perspective that did happen, and we had to deal with this back then, Judge, there was a woman named Shantae Mallard, who, the windshield case, y'all remember that, Chris, do you remember that? Shantae Mallard. They made a movie about this. This woman coming late night from drinking and partying, hit a guy from 287. He was stuck in the windshield. It was a homeless guy. She drove with him in the windshield to her home, let the garage door down, called her boyfriend over. The boyfriend comes over. They have sex. Then they leave, take the car to, I can't remember, Cop Park, I think that's what it was. Dumped the body, burned the car. Anyway. Yeah.
What was that case?
It's Shantae Mallard.
Yeah.
Look at that. And Christy.
I'm like,
So I was originally retained on the case. And so Mr. Mallard, I think his name was Richard Mallard, came to me and his parents and said, okay, well, by the time they retained me, all of this hit the press worldwide. It was everything. It blew up. And we went to court because Judge Wilson thought that her bond should be held insufficient because of all the publicity. She said, why did she do an out on bond? And we're going to have a hearing. And the judge raised her bond and puts her up. And the Mallards say, Mr. Heiskell, we need to talk to you. So they came that Saturday morning to me, to my office, and said, what is it? What do you want to talk about? She said, well, we were there. The judge was white, the prosecutor was white, and the victim was white. We think we need a white lawyer. I said, oh, okay. So I immediately turned my file over to them. They ended up hiring two good lawyers, Jeff Kearney and Reagan Wynn, to defend. Shantae was convicted, received 50 years in prison. Is that right, Christy? And then right after that, they wanted to come to me, and he called me and said, can you handle the appeal? I don't think so. But that kind of highlighted to me some of the things as a African-American attorney you have to go through, those things, and you have to overcome those things. And sure enough, if you kind of keep your eye on the North Star and the grindstone, you will overcome those. I want to tell you other young attorneys out here who may be faced with that at some point, those attorneys of color. But also just being able to deal with that was something that we talked about, attorneys among ourselves. And that's when I really got involved in the Tarrant County Black Bar, which is now the L. Clifford Davis Legal Association. But the other end of that spectrum is I wanted to also be sure to ingratiate myself and get involved in the general bar, the specialty bar, the Tarrant County Bar, the Criminal Defense Lawyers Association, et cetera, because I wanted to make sure people knew who I was and that I did have the necessary skills and experience to do the work that they were doing as well. And I was so proud, again, with Judge Sterns on the bench and Judge Davis was on the bench at the time, to see our two Black judges. And so that was a relief. To walk into a courtroom, seeing a person that looks like you, and you feel a sense of comfort, not necessarily relief all the time, but comfort, because you knew then what to expect, and as also what not to expect as well. But I just wanted to say that because that gave me that impetus to do that when confronted with those type of discriminatory actions from a Black person and white people as well. Yeah. It's just the nature of the beast and what we have to deal with.
Well, you know, that's one of the things that I've noticed over the years, Mike, that early on in my practice, my clients were all Black. I won't say, let me take that back. I had a few white clients and a few Hispanic clients, but very few in numbers. But later on, as time passed, people from all different racial groups began to come to me. And so I think that has begun to change, and progress is being made there. And I think part of that is our society evolving and becoming more open-minded, but it's also people just seeing the quality of work that lawyers do, regardless of their color.
Yeah.
It's incumbent upon those of us who are minority lawyers to try and do a good job so as to be good representatives.
Yes.
Of our group.
I agree. And I can say right now, the majority of my clients are white. And I do a lot of federal work, and that's part of that dynamic and the demographic I deal with. But you're right too. That can pass over time, just based on how you conduct yourself. I am really big on professionalism and civility. As Judge Sterns said, and Judge Davis also taught me when he was associated with my office, let them know there's a lawyer on the other side of the bench. But also how you dress and how you appear. You young lawyers, and I can talk to the men. Women is a bit different because y'all have to understand how to dress and how to conduct yourself in court. And I know that's a different dynamic altogether. You can follow these two ladies right here, though. And there's a lady, too. These three ladies who really know how to do it because I've seen them do it. But for me, when I go to the courthouse now, and not just now, of recent years, and you see other lawyers who are real casual and dressed down and whatever, I mean, that really turns me off. And I understand we're in Fort Worth, we're Cowtown, is casual Friday or whatever the case may be. But I think when you go into a courtroom, especially if you get in court, you go in looking like a lawyer. If you have your client with you, you make sure that you are all buttoned up, you act like a lawyer. That's the only way we're going to uphold our profession. I teach about this quite a bit when I talk to especially young lawyers. Because we often get that question, how can you represent that person when you know he's guilty? How can you do that? Y'all had anyone asking those questions, the attorneys in here?
Yes.
Anybody? I know y'all have. And, different answers, but, the main answer I always come up with is twofold. Number one, we're the only profession in the Constitution, the Sixth Amendment, right to counsel. There's no other profession listed in the Constitution. Number two, as a result of that, we have this oath similar to what a doctor has, a Hippocratic oath. If someone goes out on the street right now and shoots someone, they take the person, and maybe the person who did the offense, the defendant, future defendant, is shot. Do the doctors turn around and say, I can't work on him because he did so-and-so? It's the same with us. We have to, in order to preserve our Constitution and to rid our doctors rid people of physical disease, mental disease. We have social diseases that we as attorneys try to get, rid our country of. So we have to look at it from that standpoint. And in doing so, You're going to have to act that role. You're going to have to act that part. You can't go in trying to look like your client, talk like your client, let them look up to you because of who you are, what you represent. And that's vitally important in my opinion, because we are low on the totem pole when you talk about attorneys. We are always the butt of the jokes, lawyers, and especially criminal lawyers. But I can tell you this, we're the best of the best. We can, I think we have a lot of civil lawyers in here, right? Some civil lawyers. And Benson, you right there too, you criminal. But, and I think most of you know this, a criminal defense lawyer can try, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to be very polite in saying that. We can beat the pants off of a civil attorney anytime, any day, all right? Because we do this on a regular and routine basis. We represent people. And when you represent people, you get that passion and you have to care. My mantra too is, if you care, you prepare. Now, I can have some clients come in who are reprobates. I may not like them, but I try to find something I care about. Whether it's someone too, it's their mother, it's her child, it's her wife, it's a daughter, sister, brother, whomever. Try to latch on to someone that you care about or some issue that you care about. I'm sorry. I thought I turned this off. Because otherwise, you will go into courtroom and I hear lawyers do this all the time from our criminal brethren. They get in the back room and they talk about the clients like dogs. Man, he's no good. You don't do that. All it is cheapening our profession among ourselves. These are people who need us. And despite how they have acted and maybe even act with you. So hold that high about professionalism and civility. And one last thing about this young lady right here, both of these two, I've tried cases against, two of the best lawyers I've tried cases against. I'll never get that Tiffany, that trial we had in the murder case. She had the jury in her hand like putty, just like you said. And she went back and told them to give him, I can't remember, 34. She could have asked for life, but she didn't. She said, give him 40 years or something like that. The jury gave him 40 years. I'm like, the hell? But she has, and this young lady right here is tough as nails, and I've seen her in action too in the Capitol. You sure did? On the death penalty case in Johnson County, yes. But I want to give kudos to them, but also kind of wrap this up from that standpoint. We are professionals, as act like professionals, as carry ourselves like professionals, and then you do that consistently. Our respect level will go up and up and up. Just remember that. Remember nothing else.
I completely agree with that, Mike. And your points are just so valid. And judges notice that too. And I'll tell you something else judges notice. Judges notice the lawyers who take care of their business. The lawyers who show up on time, and the lawyers who file their motions, who are honest with the court. Because let me tell you, if you ever get to the point where you're not professional and you're not honest with the court, the word will get among the judges. Judges talk to each other. In Tarrant County, we had, at least I think we still do, a monthly judges meet, sometimes more often than that, but at least a monthly meeting of the felony judges, where they talk about who's to be on the wheel and so forth. But also we talk about what lawyers are doing. And if you get a bad reputation for showing up late or a bad reputation for being dishonest with the court, it will follow you throughout your career. So you really don't want to do that. Just be candid with the court, be honest, it'll pay off. It'll pay off.
Yeah. And one of the things you said too, Judge, about being kind, respectful to the court staff, I was always taught that too by Judge Davis. That always pays off. You go into the courtroom, you go up to the bailiff, to the court reporter, the clerk. If you're in a strange jurisdiction, like, when I go to Hood County and other counties, I do that. They'll know who I am. And then they'll in turn respect you for recognizing them. And the next thing you know, if you're in trial, and you say, man, I need this, I need that. The bailiffs are scrambling. Let me get this for you, sir. Let me do this for you. The jury sees that in a court you respect because they're respecting you. So all of that kind of goes hand in hand to make sure you do acknowledge people, for their humaneness and just being there, working, because it will pay off.
Yeah.
And you get those returns.
Like I never forget trying a case years ago. I guess it was in the early 80s down in Fairfield, which was located on 45 between Dallas and Houston. And, you know, I walked in that courtroom thinking, okay, they probably never seen a black lawyer before. I'm representing a black man who was stolen some money from another old black man, in fact. But, you know, and the funny thing about the case, when the boy died, I'll never forget the prosecutor. His name was Bob Gage. And I'm doing the boy died of jurors, prospective jurors. And I asked them if they knew Bob Gage, but every hand went up. How do you know him? Well, his dad is Doc Gage. He delivered every baby in the county. So I felt like, you know, I was out of my element, of course. But again, I knew that I had to be professional. I knew that I had to handle my case properly and try to show not only the jurors, but also the prosecutor and the judge that I was a good lawyer, that I was a trustworthy lawyer, and that I was there to do my job. And I will tell you something, my client was found guilty, which he was. He ended up getting probation. And that judge and I formed a very warm relationship. There were times when he would call me asking me legal questions after that. You know, so that can happen when you just conduct yourself in a certain way.
It can. And it also transitions to when the case is over. Always shake your opponent's hand.
Yeah.
I don't care what the outcome is. Go up. That's a professional thing to do.
Yeah.
And I've seen too many attorneys who
storm
out mad as hell or whatever and don't acknowledge anyone. But you go up, and I think both of these ladies can attest when they beat my butt in court, I'll go up to them, hey, great job, good job.
Yeah.
That's what you do. And people see that's being professional.
Yeah.
That's not being petty. And again, that's part of what we should demonstrate day in and day out. You mentioned Freestone County down in Fairfield, Judge. I had a case in Limestone County, which is right next door in Groesbeck, Texas. And this has been some years ago, and I was representing the son of the head of the NAACP there, who was charged with some marijuana. And the DA, the Sheriff's Department, had hired this guy from Louisiana who'd been fired by the Sheriff's Department. They didn't find that out later until I told them when I investigated to run out and do some buys on marijuana without any corroboration, without any recording, anything. Just went on this middle-aged white guy, and there were about 20 other black young men in Mejia, Groesbeck, for those familiar with that area of Texas. And going in the courtroom, and I found this out, and I told the DA this, and he just ignored it totally. I said, you need to dismiss it. Look at this guy's background. He was for theft from one of the parishes in Louisiana. So I ended up talking to the judge about it, and the judge asked the DA, why don't you dismiss it too? And he did. We went to trial, and that judge was so nice and kind to me. The jury saw it. Mr. Heiskell, what else? Mr. Heiskell. Mr. Heiskell will talk to you now. And they saw that, and they came back with not guilty verdict. I'm convinced, because they saw the judge, how he treated me as opposed to the prosecutor, because of the things that I had done to turn over that evidence that should have resulted in a dismissal. But those are little bitty tidbits of things that can happen in the courtroom. Judge and I can remember before we have this present courthouse, the old courthouse. You're too young for that, Chris.
Unfortunately, I tried a few things.
Remember those? You were there? Oh, courthours?
Yes.
Oh,
well, and the auxiliary court.
Oh my gosh.
So you were there when I was. My first court I was on that fourth floor, and the jail was above me. And the prisoner would put stuff in the commode,
and it leaked.
And it leaked through the water. And we had a bucket on the table.
Oh yeah, it was horrible.
Filthy.
It was filthy back then.
It was.
And some of those judges back then too, oh my gosh.
Well, back then when I came here, we only had initially just 4 felony courts. And then we got 5, which 213. And then later we got the 297. But so it was just a few courts, and it was a different place back then. I mean, we had one judge, and I won't call his name, but he was fond of talking on his telephone while he was in trial. He had a telephone at the bench. And it was discovered that he was calling the prosecutors to tell the other prosecutor what question to ask. So it was kind of different back then.
Yeah.
It was kind of different.
And we also had, I remember Judge Cave was indicted in federal court with Judge Tom Cave. He was in 213.
213. Tom Cave was, I tried many cases in front of him. He was, as a judge in the courtroom, he was fantastic. He knew the law. When he didn't know the law, he would take the time to read the cases, and he tried to call balls and strikes. But his downfall was his personal life. And he was tried in federal court and was convicted and would have been sent to prison, but there was a U.S. Supreme Court decision that came down after he was found guilty, but before he was sentenced, that basically said they couldn't use the mail fraud statutes broadly as they were using in a case similar to his. So
that was
time
back then.
Yeah.
So anyway, oftentimes, you heard I was president of the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, so I go all over the country on a regular and routine basis. And I can tell you this, I still say the best lawyers are in Texas, from my experience. I mean, I've gone and talked to people all over, and gosh, the drama that you see and hear and the stories that you hear, and just look at how people present at the CLEs for NACDO. They really kind of pale in comparison, in my opinion, to what TCDLA does, even our Tarrant County criminal defense lawyers. Because I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just something in the water in Texas or whatever the case may be. But to me, I like to say I'm from Texas. A lot of people are jealous of Texas in the criminal defense part because they know how strong our affiliate is statewide and even our local affiliates in the counties. And so there's some measure of jealousy in that. And we're always, even now, the last couple of years, if you go to any conferences and you look at the seminar agenda, you see a lot of Texas attorneys that they are pulling now to come to speak at their seminars because they know the quality of the attorneys that we have here. So I dare say, if you're interested in, joining our organization or speaking, there are those of you I know who can do this. And volunteer to write a paper and do a CLE, because you all, those folks in here, and Benson, you too, where's Ty? Was he here? But look what y'all done here. And this is not by any accident. You all are here for a reason. Y'all put this together. And I think y'all should share this with the rest of the folks. What y'all have accomplished already and will accomplish in the future. And this is very impressive. So don't leave this just here. Take it out, because people need to see firms like this, and y'all back each other up. You got to have each other's backs. Just saying.
Well, I have a question. Can I?
Yes.
So I'm really interested, because I know that you all have, for many years, watched the criminal justice system in Tarrant County evolve. It's judges, the prosecutors, the defense attorneys, just everything. And I'm curious, what are you seeing today that you didn't see before, good or bad? And what advice do you have for all of us in trying to either get our criminal justice system here in Tarrant back on track, or keep it running like a well-oiled machine? I know it's a bunch of questions in there, but I'm really curious about what you all think.
You want to tackle it first?
Well, I'll try to tackle it. I mean, I've seen it evolve. And, when I first came here, and this is true to his heart and to his core, the good old boy system. Tim Curry was a DA. And so Tim had his favorites, which is fine and dandy. I learned earlier on, again, trying to get involved with the different cliques that exist at the courthouse. I didn't just want to isolate myself. That there was this little club called the Alcoholic Beverage Club, ABC, right? and we'd meet every Monday at Del Frisco's downtown and bar, and you go upstairs, and there's Tim, there's many other attorneys, old school attorneys, and some of the judges up there talking about cases, trials, things of that nature, people. And so I kind of worked my way into that group, and so I learned from that about what was really going on and how you could, get your cases handled for the most part. That's not a real shining light, if you will, necessarily a good light on our system. But as time evolved, with our different DAs, let me put it this way. Tarrant County had always been this noteworthy place for the collegiality I talked about earlier. Mm-hmm. Everyone getting along and so forth, and easy peasy, not worry about things. So different from Dallas. Dallas was the stuffy, privileged people over there who felt that they knew everything. But as time has progressed, I've seen that kind of a shift in that dynamic. And I'm not sure if it's because of the number of people that have come here or just the different people in the DA's offices or whatever. But I don't see that much anymore. And I can tell you this, in the federal courts, it's really changed. I mean, in my opinion, this is, and Led, you can tell judges, I said this, some of the worst relationships between the prosecution bar and the defense bar in federal court is horrible right now. Y'all don't see this, for those of you who don't do federal work. And so that has to change, and I'm not sure what's going to happen. But, I think because I've gotten older and set in my ways, and I'm used to certain things being done in a certain way, and I don't see that. Mm-hmm. And I attribute it to that lack of professionalism and knowing what to do, to turn over the discovery timely, to know, first of all, know what Brady is to begin with, and then turn it over and do those things necessary to make sure our system keeps going. But there are a lot of just snippets of conversations I'm hearing about the lack of this and the lack of that, and cases being lost by the prosecutors that should never have been tried to begin with. Their judgment, that's always come into play. What is the judgment? How are they exercising the judgment? Are they being micromanaged? Let these prosecutors look at their cases and decide what to try and what not to try, rather than listening or fearful of your supervisors. And that's still what I'm hearing is the case here. And that to me is problematic. When you get out of law school, you go through your training, part of that should be some judgment. That's why you were hired, to exercise your own independent judgment, to review your cases, to determine whether you can prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt. If you can't, hey, do cram it or reduce it to something you think can be proven and offer it and get rid of it. So that's what I see, and that may or may not, Tiffany, have answered your question fully, but it's just a whole spectrum of things I could sit here for hours and talk about. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to devolve it into attacking people individually. I'm not here to do that. Mm-hmm. But I do think there's certainly a lot of room for improvement here in Tarrant County to get us back to at least that reputation of being a good county to practice in and go in front of these courts. It's kind of tarnished right now.
Well, I'll say this. Tarrant County has always been ahead in terms of certain things. For example, Tim Curry's office always had a more open policy with regard to discovery than other counties, to the extent that they were allowing defense attorneys to actually see a police report, which is something some county wouldn't do back when I started. They gave you the bare necessities that the Code of Criminal Procedure called for, which back then was nothing more than the name of the witnesses, addresses, and telephone number, and any result of a scientific report or any statement of your client. That was it. You didn't get the witness statement. You didn't need to see those. And of course, but Tarrant County was in it more progressive in that sense than the other counties. But what I have seen from the judicial standpoint is that bothers me is that I think our judiciary has gotten perhaps more politicized than it should be. And that's something that we've been working on in Texas for the last 40 years, I know. Various Chief Justices, Supreme Court have worked on trying to get some of the politics out of the selection of judges. Because what we have now is a process where judges are elected, and therefore you have people running for office. We're not saying it will be fair and impartial, They're saying, I'm standing with law enforcement. Why? Because that's good political rhetoric. But is that good for our system? I don't think it is. And one of the things that kind of bothered me at all times here in Tarrant County was the judicial dashboard. Okay? The judicial dashboard made judges become like little kids trying to outrace each other.
Yeah.
And that's when you get into trouble. One of the things I noticed in the Michael Morton case, and it just stuck in my mind, the murder of Mr. Morton's wife occurred in August. He was indicted, I believe, in October. He was in trial in February, okay, on a murder case. Now, in my mind, that did not give the defense lawyers enough time to prepare their case, particularly with a recalcitrant DA who was hiding evidence, but that didn't give them enough time. I mean, I guess a lawyer could get ready, Mike, in 4 months if that's the only case you have. But good lawyers have other cases.
It's true.
They got other judges making demands on their time. And that's one of the things I found in my mind to have been troubling about that case. The judge was pushing it to go so fast. And I see some of that here on the local level. Judges are more concerned, seem like to me, with the stats, the numbers, who's moving more cases. Now, that doesn't mean you don't work. Do your work. Let the numbers take care of themselves. Don't get in this deal where you're trying to, I'm number one. That creates problem out there. And that's one of the things that I've seen that bothers me, with our judiciary here today.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, you hear that all the time about how many dispositions so-and-so had, and judges even bragging, I dispose of more cases and whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, why is that even relevant or important? But,
that become a paramount consideration, which, let's face it, the judge should be trying to make sure that each litigant, defendant, prosecution, receive a fair trial. That's what it's supposed to be about.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
If we've got time for one more. What is your favorite moment when you look back as a lawyer or as a jurist and you're proud of the lawyering that you did?
Wow. My favorite moment? God. Oof. Well, I just had one recently. Probably my favorite. Your recency overtakes me. And I'll go back to one that I guess that existed before that. I had just a recent acquittal in federal court of 12 counts of money laundering and different things. My guy, my defendant, young man who lived in Carrollton, he's Mormon, 3 children, was able to obtain the verdict form, all the not guilties, signed by the foreperson, and an inscription that he gave about how he loved what I did and blah, 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 and said that I saved his life and protected him from the government. And thank you so much. And had it framed and everything and delivered it to my office. I mean, it brought me to tears.
Yeah.
So look, when that happens, that's even more important than getting fees. When you affect people like that and you help them out. But before that, I guess it was a death penalty trial many, many years ago. I don't think y'all were here. It was Kenneth Reed Smith. That was the defendant's name. Had kidnapped, raped, and murdered this young girl on her way from school. And we had this death penalty case, and the jury gave him a life sentence. And oh my gosh, and it was so much publicity around here. Mark Daniel and I tried that case.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we felt for sure that, he was doomed, but it was such a shock and surprise. And it just kind of really catapulted me, and with Mark, and went, whoa, how did these guys do that? Because it was headlines and news all night long. Mm-hmm. But that was kind of a highlight that I, able to save his life in considering what occurred then. But those are the two things for me.
So your question is, repeat it again.
Either as a judge or as a trial lawyer, what is your favorite moment where you look back and you think you're really proudest of your lawyering?
That is a good question.
You have a lot of them, Judge.
Well, I do have a few, I was thinking back in my career, one of the cases I worked on, and I really just carried a briefcase, as a young lawyer was with a lawyer named Don Gladden. We filed a lawsuit against Tarrant County to require the redistricting to Commissioner's Court line. And that was we won that case, but we forced the county to settle it. And we forced them, in lieu of paying us any attorney's fees, to build a courthouse, which is that courthouse on Mills Avenue. That's one of the cases that I've been most proud of in my career. But I will tell you this, in all honesty, in terms of moments that my career that I was most happy with was in Ty, you were like this, in a civil case where me and my partner Carl Mallory, Christian, you knew him, were able to get a big judgment in an electrocution case. And when you get one of those judgments with 7 figures, and you've been struggling forever, that makes you kind of happy.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Okay.
Well, I would love for anyone else, if they have any questions, we have about 8 more minutes. So if you all have any questions.
Yeah, I have a question. Thank you both so much for being here. There are certain things about you gentlemen that really solidify you as pillars in our community, and you really transcend so many different demographics. But one of the things that really stands out to me about you both is your leadership. So I'd like to hear a little bit about how you would define your leadership style, and if you have a lesson about leadership that we could take home and things that we could work on to be more like you, really.
If I had to define my leadership style, maybe my personality, I would say pretty quiet. I don't think I'm the kind of person that necessarily wants to be out front. It would probably be kind of quiet, particularly in a situation where I'm new. I like to listen and then go forward after I've listened, try to figure out what's going on. That's probably my attitude, and understand that, I don't have all the answers. One thing I've learned through my life as I've gotten older is that everybody is given some kind of talent. We just all do. One person may be good in math, somebody else may be good in crafts, somebody else might be good at remembering legal principles, but we all have a talent, regardless of who we are, even our educational level. Somebody who may not even have a high school education, he may be the smartest person you know in doing certain other kinds of things. So I try to listen and try to learn from people. And I think that would be what I would say characterize me as a leader, if I am one.
You're saying some of the similar things. For those of you who don't know, he grew up in the country. I grew up in the country. I grew up in Pelham, Texas, which is an ex-enslaved community in Central Texas, down near Hillsborough and Corsicana area. But growing up, my dad used to say, when you looking, are you seeing? When you're hearing, are you listening?
Yeah.
And you think about that. If you're looking, are you seeing? If you're hearing, are you listening? And that gets back to what you were saying about being an active listener, which I do too. But one of the things about being a leader is to sit and look at people and listen to people and get feedback. And then you give them that same feedback, if you will, that they've given you. You try to, not necessarily emulate it, but what am I trying to say?
Mirrors?
There we go. With regard to that. And when people see that you really care about things that they're talking about, and they see your passion and how you care about it, then they're going to look at you as a leader. They're going to turn to you because they know, hey, I can talk to Michael about this. He'll listen to me. But not only will he listen, he'll act on it. And so that's when when I ran for this position as National Criminal Head of NACDL, it's a nationwide thing. So, and of course, you can't go around the country campaigning, but they had a lot of Zoom calls I did with different folks. And I had to talk to them in that manner, at the same manner, even via Zoom. And people told me, hey, even like through those camera lenses or the images, we could see that you really were passionate about this. And so we latched onto you because of that reason. So that leadership involves that being an active listener, but being passionate about something that you care about and showing people that, and then they will follow you. So, well, thank you all again for hosting us. Benson, thank you so much. Thank you all. Tiffany, thank you. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Comment, first out of the gratitude of our hearts for you guys coming and sharing this time with us. Being president of the national organization, I know there are many constraints on your time. And Judge Sterns, I know it's a much more beautiful day outside.
Yeah, I have plenty of time.
Something that I want to leave y'all with is these men are not pillars of the community because they talk the talk. They walk the walk. In 2009, when I came out of law school, my first job was working for a judge who was on the 5th floor, making $10 an hour as working as a bailiff. As an administrative bailiff, making $10 an hour as a lawyer. And every day, the judge's elevator was to my right, and Judge Sterns' court was to my left. So he would walk down the hall, and every day he would say, "Hello, Benson. Here's a district court judge who takes the time out of his day to make me feel welcome, to make me feel special." And then I asked around about him, and I found out he's also been on the Court of Criminal Appeals. He's not just a man of tall stature. He's a giant among men and among lawyers. He's someone everyone has looked up to. That's what I walked into and how I was welcomed. And when they talked about how Tarrant County was different than Dallas County, there was a Tarrant County way that I was taught. I remember when I met Mike Heiskell, and he carries himself different.
Yeah.
He came to me again as this young guy and asked me who I was, what my background was, what I was doing working for Sharon Wilson. And as a young prosecutor, not like that. The memories about Mike Heiskell is one of the, be careful how I say this, one of the people that I noticed that she treated with exceptional respect was Mike Heiskell. Yeah. And that's because of his professionalism, what he put into his cases, because the one thing that she has always respected were people that put in the work, that brought their A game to court, that frankly, because of their knowledge of the law, were able to challenge her. So 2 men who really took time out of their day. And I remember being a young prosecutor. You could come to any young prosecutor and say, "I don't have time for you. Your offer is ridiculous," and just walk out. That's just the nature of the beast. You're a young prosecutor. You don't know what's what. But Mike Heiskell was one of those people who would come in and tell you what he was looking for, but explain why. And if you were far from where his position was, he'd tell you why maybe you should see it a different way. It's something that we all need to carry with ourselves. That Tarrant County way is always, there's always a spread of it disappearing, right? But it's up to us to continue the legacy that these legends have created. And really, I want to leave you with that encouragement of regardless of what practice, regardless of what practice area you're in, that's something we can continue to be known for, and we've got great precedent. Again, thank you guys for sharing your time.
Thank you, Vincent. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.